All right, I think I'm live. Hello. If you're joining me live today, welcome and namaste. I'm Renee. Welcome to my podcast. I have lately been doing this live. It's slightly challenging, intimidating, and I gotta be quite honest, it's kind of fun and really good discipline for me because I tend to spend way too much time editing, and whenever I commit to doing it live, I commit and then it's done. And it's actually, again, a challenge for me. And I love being here. So, anyways, thank you for joining me today for my podcast. If you're listening to this recorded, nothing changes. You're just listening to the recording. And if you can't watch the whole live, or if you ever miss my live, then always know that there's a version that's uploaded. You can even find me on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify now. I'm in Spotify, Google Play for Android. I don't have an Android, but I think that's what it's called. Anyway, so you can always listen to the recorded versions there and on YouTube. And even on Facebook, I've been posting everything. So I'm kind of covering the whole spectrum. You definitely can't not figure out an excuse to not listen to me because I'm trying to cover all my bases. Anyways, thank you for being here. I've been doing a series on skin. My podcast can be anything from yoga to skin to health, wellness, self-care. But I've been doing a series on skin. I've been an esthetician for 15 years, and I now have my dual licensure in Colorado and in Hawaii now, which has been really exciting for me. Anyways, be sure and listen to the other episodes on skin. You don't have to listen to them in order, but if anything today is a little bit confusing for you, listen to the other episodes. It might fill in some holes for you here and there. Today, though, I want to discuss maybe some common issues that people have in their skin. And I don't know, maybe you don't realize it's that common. Maybe you didn't realize that it's not normal too, right? The other flip side of it, you didn't realize that if you have this texture to your skin, you didn't realize that that wasn't normal and that everybody could possibly achieve smooth, glowing skin. And so let's get into it today. So what I wanted to cover for sure is like deep acne, whenever you have those really, really deep ones on your skin, and sometimes they never come to the surface. So you can't squeeze them or pop them or anything because they never come to the surface. They can be really tender and sore and sometimes go away. Your body just eventually reabsorbs it. It fights it from the inside and then reabsorbs it. Another one is just bumps. Like even sometimes you get bumps on the back of your arms. Some people can have it across their forehead, cheeks, chest, legs. Anyways, the bumps, and then even some dermatitis. Dermatitis tends to be a kind of generic term for anything with itis in it is usually inflammation. Derma is your skin, so dermatitis would definitely be inflammation of the skin. So seems kind of broad, and sometimes whenever you go to the doctor, that's what they'll diagnose you with is dermatitis or contact dermatitis, and it's very broad, and then they'll give you a steroid for it and send you back on your way. But maybe holistically, I take the time to try and figure out maybe what's causing these things. So all of these things, if you take the time, doctors, thank goodness for them, because if I need them, they're there for me. But let's face it, they are a system that is sometimes overbooked. They're busy and they only have to know a lot, but they don't really have the time to sit down and talk about diet and nutrition and even the habits, like how you clean your skin and such. Sometimes you can get referred to a dermatologist or you move on to a dermatologist, but even sometimes a dermatologist isn't going to spend as much time with you as I would as an esthetician, master herbalist, and even yoga instructor. So do know that my suggestions or advice today are coming to you from, I am not a doctor, but I like to just offer up solutions, ideas, education, and what you do with that from there is up to you. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So what I am sometimes able to do is get people thinking. And then maybe you can do some research on your own, books, the internet, go to your doctor. And then sometimes you can communicate better with your doctor too if you can communicate what you feel or what's going on, better communication with your doctor, so that in that short time, 5 to 15 minutes that you're with the doctor, maybe you can accomplish more if you are speaking on similar terms as them or have an idea maybe of what's going on with your skin. Anyway, let's get into it. So the first one was that deep acne. Again, sometimes it even pops up around the jawline, behind the ears, down through the neck and throat area. If you are experiencing that, maybe you've already heard this, but 9 times out of 10, that's hormonal. And that's why you'll feel them come up. They're really sore and tender, like a bruise to touch, but then your body can eventually reabsorb them. Hormonally, especially women, ladies, around that time of month is whenever you might feel these things starting to come up under the skin. But they might last, a couple weeks, because maybe it's there before your period and then even slightly after your period. So they could be there for a couple weeks, which, knowing that we cycle every 4 weeks, is going to feel like half the time you have these, right? You're going to feel like a good majority of your time that you have these under your skin, because when they start to erupt as your hormones are changing before your period, and then your body's got to be able to fight it and dissolve it, and the hormone levels come back down again. Anyways, 9 times out of 10, it's hormonal. And if you haven't had them your whole life, or maybe you have friends that don't have them and you're wondering, well, why do I have them? Everybody's different. We all have different hormones. Now, again, just to get you thinking, I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose anything, but just to get you thinking, a lot of times we don't realize that insulin is a hormone. Insulin, yes. If you know what insulin is, you know that it's usually connected to your blood sugar levels or the consumption of sugar and sweets and such. So insulin is a hormone. All of our hormones are meant to work together. Your thyroid hormones, your adrenals, adrenaline, cortisone, insulin, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, androsterone, blah, 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 blah. There are so many hormones in our bodies. Even the hormones that help us think, like right now, I can't 100% think of them, but basically your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland and all those have their own hormone. And they technically work together like dominoes, whenever you stack dominoes up together. And then it can be kind of fun sometimes to tip one domino and watch them all fall down, right? However, if you're using that analogy with your hormones, it's not so much of a cool concept to think that if you tip one domino, they're all going to go over. So thinking outside of just estrogen, so us ladies, thinking outside of just estrogen and progesterone, imagine around that time of month, whenever your estrogen and progesterone is having that shift to having your period, how that chain reaction or dominoes could be affecting the other hormones in your body, including insulin, cortisol. And cortisol is known to be kind of your stress hormone. So is adrenaline that comes from your adrenals whenever you're stressed. So sometimes whenever all of those are starting to get out of whack, and depending on your body, what you've been through in your life, some of it's genetics, but I always tell my boyfriend too that sometimes genetics can be that we inherited a mindset, and it's so easy to blame everything on genetics. But I believe with due diligence that you can work with your genetics and have a better lifestyle. The first part is knowing your genetics. Genetically, what did you inherit? And then from there, working with that. So I believe that somewhat I inherited my body tends to attach to estrogen really easily, and I can have estrogen overload. At a time in my life when my estrogen was at its highest, and I'm still menstruating. So, this is years ago, still young, still having a monthly period. Actually, I'm proud to say that I still do at age 48. But anyways, at one time in my life, when I was perceived to be a healthy 30-year-old, late 20s, 30-year-old, and my estrogen was out the roof. I had endometriosis and was getting that deep lesions or acne that never produced anything. They'd come and go with my hormones. So one time in my life, I had a really big hormone imbalance, way too much estrogen in my body. And some of that can be definitely dietary. We don't realize that diet can be a big part of our estrogen and progesterone levels. That's why I mentioned the whole um, insulin, cortisol, and adrenaline, and your thyroid hormones and such like that, is because eating the wrong types of food, maybe it's an allergy, or maybe too much of one thing, too much sugar, too much carbohydrates, too much of anything. I know I just picked on sugar and carbohydrates, but that's because I'm trying to get to how your insulin gets stimulated, and then your insulin, how it could be affecting even your estrogen and progesterone levels. Anyways, it's a lot to think about. And if I want to keep this podcast around 20 minutes, I can't get much deeper than that. But again, my goal today is to kind of get you thinking a little bit outside the box of just why you might have things going on your skin, and that it's not always dermatitis or traditional acne or other things like that, but it can be what you're consuming, your hormone levels. Cortisol can get out of whack. Cortisol and adrenaline can get out of whack if you're consuming too much caffeine. So you get those two out of whack, and they might be affecting your insulin, and then your insulin could be affecting your estrogen and progesterone. So again, not to just 100% pick on sugar and carbohydrates, because I do believe we still need some of those in our diet, but caffeine could be throwing you off. There's a number of things out there that could be throwing you off. I'm just trying to get you to think. If you ever want to do a consultation with me, a private one-on-one, we can discuss these, and I'm always happy to. My website is www.reneestahl, my name, RENEESTAHL.online. The .online part is really important because it's not a usual website name. So reneestahl.online if you ever want to talk to me one-on-one. Moving on, the bumps. So sometimes it's really tiny, but a lot, it almost feels like grit or sandpaper actually on your skin. And basically, usually, the easiest solution is that you need to exfoliate, because sometimes it can be across the forehead. Forehead can get really thick. So it's your skin is trying to thicken. It's thickening. And you just need to exfoliate. And it's not possibly going to be an overnight cure. You're going to need to exfoliate more than once. A quick exfoliator is right in your kitchen. A little bit of oil, whether it's olive oil or coconut oil, whatever you want to use, and some coarse sea salt, or even sugar. Sugar works too. Sugar's more gentler than salt. So if you do have a tendency to have sensitive skin, use sugar. If you feel like you need a little bit more aggression than sugar, then salt. So right there in your kitchen, you could start today. My favorite, and I mention it all the time in all my other podcasts, is my Clarisonic brush. So I have one of those chargeable Clarisonic brushes. You can sometimes buy the models that have the body brush and put the body brush on there. But honestly, if you're even just using the brush for your face, you could do the back of your arms, your forehead, chest, and see how that works for you. Some exfoliation to work down some of that buildup of skin cells that's on your skin. I've also heard and read things about citrus, that possibly you are lacking some citrus in your life. And vitamin C basically is what you're getting at. So upping maybe your vitamin C intake. There are some skincare products out there that promote some advocate, if you've listened to some of my other podcasts, of a lot of beauty counter skincare regimens. But if you do like to shop and you're not a DIY person like me, there are some good ones out there. One of my favorite is Evan Healy. And even using like a clay mask on the backs of your arms and your face, a clay mask might help also break down the skin cells, fruit enzymes. Basically, listen to my podcast on exfoliation. But today it's a full circle wrap around because I'm just talking about the texture of the skin and what you might have on your skin. Another reason why you might have bumps on your skin is an actual rash. So if it's kind of itchy or a lot of redness with it, even if it's not itchy but has a lot of redness on it, it could be a rash. Now, a rash can come from many things. I found out that I'm allergic to nut oils, and especially Moroccan, also known as argan oil, kukui down here in Hawaii. There's a lot of kukui oil and everything. Those two make me the most reactive. I react to those two the most. I do keep some of the other nut oils on the down low. Almonds, I'm allergic to almonds. And sometimes you see shea butter is technically from a nut, but I do okay with it. I keep it on the down low so that I don't get a reaction, but I don't see an immediate reaction. But the ones that I see an immediate reaction with are the argan oil, aka Moroccan oil, and kukui nut oil. Argan oil will give me small bumps. The rash is a small series of small bumps that you might actually swear that you're more trying to break out, like acne, like little itty bitty acne, but yet they never turn into whiteheads. Kukui oil gives me much larger bumps, like mosquito bites. I actually thought maybe I had been massively attacked. I was using kukui oil on my legs, and when you looked at my legs, it looked like I had been massively attacked by a huge swarm of mosquitoes. And it was very itchy like mosquitoes. And they would last for 2-3 days even. They lasted longer than mosquito bites, which is another reason why I knew they weren't mosquito bites, because they lasted for 2-3 days, almost a week a couple times, because I didn't realize what was doing it, and I kept applying the kukui oil over and over on my legs. So something to consider. You could be having an allergic reaction to something in the product you're using. If you listen to my podcast episode, the last one on nourishing your skin with oils, I really talk about how to start using single ingredients. So you just use one ingredient like olive oil or coconut oil or rosehip oil. You just use one and see how your skin reacts for a week or two. And it really helps you narrow down. So if you're curious, use argan oil straight or kukui oil straight and see what happens. Or stop using it for 2 weeks to a month and see if your skin clears up. That's the other one, right? If you're already using it, then you have to stop using it and see if your skin clears up. All right, moving on from there, we have contact dermatitis, which contact dermatitis is going to fall in that allergy area as well, right? Because you're obviously coming into contact with something that is creating inflammation of the dermis. The dermis is your skin. Again, that can definitely be a product you're using or an ingredient, like how I react to nut oils. And it can also be like a latex allergy is contact dermatitis. You're putting on the gloves or whatever you're touching that has latex in it, and it creates contact dermatitis because you're going to look like you have a rash on the dermal of your skin. I didn't realize that I had a latex allergy, obviously, until I started troubleshooting and figured out that I did. I was noticing it, and then I had a feeling maybe it was a latex allergy. Then one day I was painting my house, painting the wall, and then rinsing out the brush on the paintbrush, and the rash started coming back within 10 hours. And if you don't know, paint is latex, just like latex gloves and a few other things. Yoga mats that are made of real rubber, I cannot use them because real rubber is latex. So using a real rubber yoga mat for a good portion of my yoga life, I had massive rashes. Also, the doctors at one time tried to just treat me with eczema. They thought it was just eczema because my latex allergy will get scaly like eczema. It'll build up. So if you have some eczema around your hands and there's something that you're touching all the time, like a yoga mat, a real rubber yoga mat, or even washing your hands with maybe a soap that has an ingredient in it that is bothering you. But I've seen other people have it, and then whenever I told them that looks just like my latex allergy, stop using your yoga mat or stop washing your hands with nut oils, and their hands cleared up. And they were very thankful that I pointed that out to them. So that's kind of cool And basically what this podcast is about is me getting you to think about things that you're using daily that could be creating some of this skin issues. Uh, let's hear like poison ivy. So that's contact dermatitis for sure. You come into contact with a plant like poison ivy, poison oak. Out here, actually, the mango trees. If you get some of the sap from the mango trees on you, or even when you're harvesting mangoes, picking them. So when you pick it between the branch and the fruit, you can get a little bit of that mango juice on you. And it can cause a rash very similar to poison ivy. I'm starting to itch just talking about this. I don't know if you guys can see this. If you're listening to the podcast, you can't see it. But if you're watching it live, you're seeing me itch myself a little bit. But yeah, basically things that can cause contact dermatitis can be an irritant, even chemical, an ingredient in something, an allergy, and you may not realize, but there's something in your daily routine that is creating that. And when you go to the doctor, again, oftentimes they're gonna ask you a few questions, and if they can't narrow it down in that 10 to 15 minute appointment, they're more than likely going to give you a steroid or some cortisone to put on the rash, and that will calm it down. You can also probably take an antihistamine and see if some of it starts to calm down. But if it's something you're exposing yourself to daily and it's building up on your skin or your hands, then you're gonna want to try and avoid it for 2 weeks to a month and see how things look and how they clear up. But as always, my yoga teachings, my teachings about skincare, wellness, health, nutrition, is always even speaking from my own heart, my own journey, and my own experiences with things. I am not here to diagnose, but to get you thinking. And again, if you ever want to do, even if you live long distance, I can do an online appointment with you and talk a little bit about what's going on with your skin, your health, your skin. I'm a big believer that your skin is indicative of what's going on inside you. So even though I mentioned a lot of topical things today, some skin issues can be internal, coming from the inside out. So dairy, often we do hear that people with dairy intolerances can result in some of these bumps on the skin and deep acne and such like that. So there's definitely things that are coming from the inside out, because the skin is the largest organ of your body, as well as something that you're putting on your skin. And be sure to listen to my other podcasts. I didn't start doing the live until last week. So only last week and this week's podcasts are live in Facebook and YouTube. But you can definitely look up my podcast, Peace, Love, Abundance Podcast, in any of the other formats like iTunes and Spotify and so on, to catch up with the other episodes. Otherwise, for today, I think I'm going to leave us at this. I'm going to cut it off here. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And as always, peace, love, and namaste.